Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first, I just want to say thank you, Secretary Richardson, for your leadership and also for the work of your co-lead, Ms. Palka, and your entire team, as you said, who have been working tirelessly around the clock in order to address these critical issues and begin to make progress and start to do a better job serving the people of California. We do greatly appreciate that. I want to start with a couple of questions for the Secretary around ID.me. So we heard the LAO in the LAO's testimony. Mr. Alamo mentioned that the ID.me technology could have and probably should have been implemented years ago. Secretary Richardson, do you share that assessment? I don't know if Secretary
Hi, this is Amy again. I wanted to see if it's okay for me to cover this specific question on behalf of Secretary Richardson.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, from a strike team aspect, the identity verification as the main cause for a lot of the backlogs and the need for improve that at the very first step is something that obviously, based on the strike team assessment, there's evidence supporting that. I would say that, yes, one would hope that this was implemented earlier, but I think it's also fair to say that with the strike team, we have true evidence and data supporting that decision, so implementing right now is the right thing to do.
And my colleague, Assemblymember Chu, raised some questions about whether or not the implementation of ID.me is living up to the expectations of the strike team. Can you just provide us a little more information on that front? Is the implementation thus far meeting your expectations, and what percentage of claims are actually being resolved automatically because of the implementation of ID.me?
Thank you for that question. I wanted to have a chance to clarify Assemblymember Chu's reference on the percentage as well. I'd like to separate out two percentage that are being used in reference. One is the ID.me's percentage of number of individuals who apply for verification of their identity and has been able to pass that identity with a successful approval, 64, and as of to date, that already went up to 70%. That percentage is different than the number of claimants or the percentage that the strike team report has strived for automation at EDD, which you have seen as 91 or 94%. So keep thinking of this way, the individual who apply for ID.me is taking the very step to getting themselves identified through a verification process. They may or may not immediately go to UI online at EDD to apply for a claim. So that percentage, as Sharon has mentioned, we are working closely with EDD, and EDD is monitoring that on a daily basis to see how that percentage is being achieved. But the 91, 94 percentage, it's about the UI online, not the same as the ID.me verification percentage, which currently is 64 to 70%. And as just for another point of a reference, ID.me implementation, it's at a national level. At the federal level, the Federal Veterans Affairs, as well as Social Security Administration, just to name a few, have implemented it in several other states. So on this national average, the passing rate for success is hovering at about 80%. And for the states that have higher percentage or complexity, potentially due to fraud, the average that we have seen is hovering between 70 to 75%. So with that, from the early indication that we have seen, we are actually quite happy with the passing rate of 70% achieved by ID.me.
Okay, all right, understood. Thank you for that. And Director Hilliard, a couple of questions for you. So not to be looking backwards, but I think I'm just trying to wrap my head around the assessments in the strike team report and really where we go from here. So when we've had two previous hearings, and you blamed the department backlog and the issues and the nightmare that was unfolding at EDD on two things. You blamed it on the legacy systems issues, and then you blamed it on a lack of staffing. And we're moving to hire, and I think actually did hire something like 5,000 people. As I read the strike team report, it's actually really a fundamental rebuke of both of those strategies or both of those assessments. So, number one is the strike team report points out that this backlog is due not to outdated technology, but to operational shortcomings. So do you agree with that assessment?
Well, first of all, it's more of the tech. I see it more or the technology where the IDME was so instrumental, because once the PUA program came into play, from an operational standpoint, it was very slow processing because we didn't have the correct tools to help with operations. And then once we did, as we implemented recently, that's just putting us in a much better position.
Okay. And in terms of the hiring of thousands of new staff members, the strike team report points out that that was not only just a total waste of taxpayer dollars, but that it was actually counterproductive and ultimately made things even worse. So, and they advised you to stop hiring those people. I guess two questions. Do you agree with that assessment? And number two, what is the plan now with those 5,000 new EDD staff members?
So it wasn't a matter that we didn't need everybody. It was a matter of how we were allocating our staff and while we were trying to tackle the backlog. So we do need all these people, and we've just moved them to different areas of responsibility until such time we get through the backlog and we can continue to train them. Now, we have about 1,800 people still with us from other departments and other branches within our department that will be returning over the next several months. So all the people that we have hired that are already helping to mitigate and bring down the backlog, thus some of the less complex stuff, but nevertheless, it all goes to the backlog, will continue to will pick up their training again following the backlog being burned down. So again, every single person is needed. It's just a matter of how we were utilizing them and allocating out the work.
I think I would say, and we can, unfortunately, it looks like Secretary Richardson's not here, so perhaps we can get one of the strike team folks to clarify the assessment, because the way that I read the assessment is that implementation of a relatively straightforward, commercially available technology fix for identity verification that would have kept 40% of claims from going to manual processing would have obviated the need to hire thousands of additional staff members. So that was how I read the strike team assessment, which sounds like it was different than yourself. And so I guess just my final question is that the strike team report notes that in addition to some of these tactical issues, in order to move EDD forward, there needs to be a shift in culture and a transformational change. Do you believe that you are the right leader to occasion that shift in culture and transformational change to get this department on track?
I absolutely do believe I'm the right leader. And I have to say, with the new appointments of our two new chief deputy directors and our legislative director, as well as our new general counsel, has already brought some great ideas to the forefront, and we're starting to relook at things in a way that we haven't before. I've totally embraced it. I appreciate their input and their guidance, and we are following the guidance, and as a collective, making decisions as a collective body, I think we're on a good path.
All right. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.